Sarah Mitchell stared at the invitation in her hands for what felt like the 100th time. The cream-colored envelope had arrived 3 weeks earlier, carrying news that should have made her happy. The city's largest charity organization was hosting its annual gala, and Sarah had been invited as a guest of honor for her outstanding work as a nurse. For most people, it would have been a dream invitation. For Sarah, it felt like a problem she couldn't solve. She sat alone in the hospital cafeteria after another exhausting 12-hour shift. Her feet ached, her back hurt, and dark circles rested beneath her eyes. Yet none of those things bothered her as much as the thought of attending the gala. Everyone who attended those events wore expensive dresses and designer suits. Sarah knew that because she had seen photos online from previous years. A simple dress that looked elegant enough for such an occasion would cost several $100s. Several $100s she simply didn't have. Sarah lived paycheck to paycheck. Most of her income went toward rent, groceries, student loan payments, and helping her mother with medical expenses. Buying an expensive dress wasn't just difficult. It was impossible. She folded the invitation and slipped it into her bag. "Maybe I just won't go," she whispered to herself. The next morning, Sarah was assigned to room 214. Inside was an elderly patient named Mr. Harrison. He had been fighting cancer for nearly a year. Despite everything he had been through, he always greeted people with a smile. "Good morning, Nurse Sarah," he said. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison. You look worried today." Sarah laughed softly. "Is it that obvious?" "A little." After a moment of hesitation, she told him about the gala and her concern about not having a dress. When she finished speaking, Mr. Harrison smiled. "You know something." "What?" "The people who invite nurses to galas aren't inviting dresses." Sarah frowned. "What do you mean?" "They're inviting heroes." Before she could respond, another patient needed assistance. She thanked him and hurried away. But his words stayed with her all day. Heroes. She certainly didn't feel like one. She was just doing her job. Or so she thought. Over the next week, Sarah continued working long shifts. One evening, an emergency call came into the hospital. A family had been involved in a serious car accident. Doctors and nurses rushed into action. For hours, Sarah barely stopped moving. She comforted frightened children. She reassured anxious parents. She assisted surgeons. She held the hand of a young woman who was terrified she might not survive. When her shift finally ended at 3 a.m., Sarah was physically exhausted. As she prepared to leave, a voice stopped her. "Sarah." She turned around. It was Dr. James Carter, one of the hospital's most respected physicians. "You did incredible work tonight," he said. Sarah smiled tiredly. "Thank you." Then she remembered the gala. "Actually, can I ask you something?" "Of course." Sarah explained everything. The invitation, the dress, her decision not to attend. When she finished, "Drive." Carter looked at her for a moment. Then he said something unexpected. "Then wear your scrubs." Sarah blinked. "My scrubs?" "Yes." She laughed. "You're joking." "I'm completely serious. But everyone else will be dressed elegantly." "Doctor." Carter shook his head. "Sarah, those scrubs represent thousands of hours spent helping people." He pointed toward the hospital hallway. "They represent every patient you've comforted." He continued. "They represent every life you've touched. And they represent the sacrifices you've made while most people were sleeping, celebrating holidays, or spending time with their families." Sarah didn't know what to say. Dr. Carter smiled. "If anyone deserves to wear scrubs proudly, it's you." For days, she thought about his words. The gala was now only 2 days away. She still didn't have a dress. And she still couldn't afford one. Finally, she made a decision. She would attend. In her scrubs. The night of the event arrived. Sarah carefully ironed her blue nursing uniform. She polished her shoes. She tied her hair neatly. Then she looked at herself in the mirror. She felt nervous. Very nervous. When she arrived at the Grand Hotel ballroom, luxury cars lined the entrance. Guests stepped onto the red carpet wearing designer gowns and expensive jewelry. Sarah suddenly felt foolish. Maybe this had been a mistake. Maybe she should turn around and go home. But before she could leave, a volunteer approached her. "Welcome, Ms. Mitchell." To her surprise, the volunteer smiled warmly. "We've been looking forward to meeting you." Sarah entered the ballroom. The room sparkled with crystal chandeliers. Soft music played. Elegant guests mingled around beautifully decorated tables. A few people glanced at her scrubs. Sarah felt her cheeks turn red. She found a quiet corner and hoped nobody would notice her. Then the lights dimmed. The evening program was beginning. The organization's director stepped onto the stage. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen." The crowd applauded. The director smiled. "Tonight, we celebrate generosity, leadership, and service." A large screen behind him lit up. Photos began appearing. Doctors, firefighters, teachers, volunteers, and nurses. The audience watched quietly. Then the director continued. "In a world that often celebrates wealth and status, we sometimes forget the people who quietly change lives every day." The room fell silent. "Tonight, we would like to recognize someone special." Sarah paid little attention. Surely he was talking about someone else. A wealthy donor. A famous philanthropist. Then her photograph appeared on the screen. Her heart nearly stopped. The director smiled. "For the past 8 years, Sarah Mitchell has served our community with extraordinary compassion." The audience turned toward her. Sarah froze. "She has worked countless overnight shifts." Photos continued appearing. Pictures of Sarah with patients. Pictures taken by grateful families. Pictures she had never even seen before. The director continued. "She has comforted the grieving, supported the frightened, and brought hope to people during the darkest moments of their lives." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. Then came the words she would never forget. "Tonight, Sarah Mitchell reminds us that greatness is not measured by what we wear." The audience listened closely. "It is measured by how we serve others." The director pointed toward her. "And that is why we are proud that Sarah came exactly as she is." The crowd erupted into applause. Then everyone stood. Hundreds of people rose to their feet. A standing ovation. For Sarah. For a moment, she couldn't move. Tears streamed down her face. The applause continued. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Finally, she walked toward the stage. As she stepped into the spotlight, she looked down at her scrubs. The same uniform she had worn thousands of times. The same uniform she had once worried would make her feel embarrassed. Now it felt different. Now it felt like a badge of honor. When she reached the microphone, the audience finally grew quiet. Sarah took a deep breath. "I almost didn't come tonight." A few people smiled. "I thought I needed a beautiful dress to belong here." She looked around the room. "But I've learned something important." The audience listened. "The most valuable things we wear aren't made by fashion designers." She touched her scrubs. "They're earned through kindness, through service, through compassion, through helping others when they need us most." Many people wiped away tears. Sarah smiled. "And if these scrubs represent even a small part of that, then they are the most beautiful outfit I could ever wear." The room exploded into applause once again. That night, Sarah received an award. But the award wasn't what she remembered most. What she remembered was the lesson. People may admire expensive clothes. They may notice luxury. They may praise appearances. But what truly inspires others is character. Because at the end of the day, the world remembers how you made people feel, not what you wore.